Another woman asked, her voice dripping with false concern.
Just heartbroken, dear. Poor Eleanor. So sudden.
Mrs. Gable leaned in, her voice dropping further, but I caught the glint in her eye. Not grief. Satisfaction? My daughter, Charlotte Vance, was the star of the show, draped in black, accepting condolences with a fragile, teary smile.
Thank you for coming. Everything.
She murmured to someone I couldn't identify. Her act was polished, perfected. The slight tremble in her voice was just enough to seem heartbroken, not enough to crack the facade. I watched her hand clutch the arm of a man I didn't recognize, a lawyer, an associate. She wasn't mourning Henry, she was solidifying her position. This wasn't about loss, it was about legacy, about control. That was the bitter, sharp truth. I saw the underestimation etched on their faces. In their casual remarks, they talked about me in the past tense as a problem solved, a loose end tied up neatly by unfortunate circumstance. They saw a fragile woman broken by grief, lost to the world. They didn't see the observer in their midst, cataloging every gesture, every false tear, every telling absence. Henry's side of the family seemed relieved, almost jovial beneath the somber surface. No deep bonds severed there. The old friends were mostly there to see and be seen, gossiping quietly about the estate, about the future. The notable absence was anyone who truly cared for me, save for Dolores Ramirez, who I knew was keeping a discreet distance, watching with sharp, knowing eyes. They thought they were safe to reveal their true natures. That was their first fatal mistake. The polite murmuring faded, replaced by a heavier silence as people began to drift away from the Charleston Memorial Gardens Chapel. They offered hushed condolences to Charlotte, averted their eyes from the closed casket that didn't hold me, and hurried back to the humid, low-country air, eager to leave the staged grief behind. I watched from a careful distance, a ghost in plain sight, and saw the first ripple. Dolores was speaking to Mrs. Gable, the sharp-eyed neighbor from near Magnolia Lane Estate. Mrs. Gable leaned in, her voice a low hiss. I knew that sound. It was the prelude to gossip, the kind that took root in damp Charleston soil and spread like kudzu.
It's just so sudden, Dolores. Poor Charlotte, losing her mother like this. Distant, after Henry passed.
Mrs. Gable clutched her small handbag, her eyes darting around. Dolores, bless her strategic heart, lowered her voice, making it sound hesitant, as if letting slip something she shouldn't.
Yes, sudden. Terribly so. It's just hard to reconcile. She seemed quite focused on the future, you know? Well, the day they said it happened, she was talking about that appointment.
Mrs. Gable's eyes widened, scenting a fresh morsel.
Appointment? What appointment, dear? A doctor? No, not a doctor. For a dress. For a function planned in June. Said she needed something light blue. Well, you know.
Dolores paused, letting the detail hang in the air. A light blue dress fitting for June. Why would a woman planning to walk into the ocean on May 11th, 2023, be discussing a dress fitting for a June event? The seed was planted. I could practically see it germinating in Mrs. Gable's mind. The narrative the police, and likely Charlotte, wanted them to accept, despair, suicide, an accident, didn't quite fit with planning summer social engagements. Charlotte, ever vigilant for cracks in her carefully constructed facade, swept over. Her voice was tight, strained.
Mother didn't have any appointments in June, Dolores. You must be mistaken.
Dolores offered a gentle, confused look.
Oh, are you sure, Charlotte? She seemed quite set on it. Said she'd marked it in her small desk calendar, the one at the estate. Said she needed to make sure the tailor knew the date for the fitting.
Another tiny detail. The small desk calendar at Magnolia Lane Estate. It was a mundane object, easily overlooked in the initial police sweep. But Dolores knew I had indeed marked a fake appointment there, a deliberate breadcrumb. Charlotte's jaw tightened.
Well, she was often confused. It does things to you. Perhaps she was talking about something else entirely.
She dismissed Dolores and Mrs. Gable with a cool nod, but I saw the flicker of unease in her eyes before she turned away. She hadn't expected this. She thought the book was closed, the story written. But the whispers had begun, carried on the humid Charleston breeze, weaving through the awkward goodbyes. A tiny, carefully placed detail, delivered by a loyal friend, was enough to make people pause, to question the finality of the ending they'd been given. The consequences of underestimating me had just taken their first, quiet step into the light. The cool, polished surface of the conference table at Finch and Associates Law Group felt like ice beneath my fingertips. It was June 1st, 2023, just a few days after Henry's charade of a funeral, and Silas Finch sat opposite me, a stack of legal documents between us. He had obtained the necessary information discreetly, confirmation that Henry Vance's will reading was happening, and what the general terms were likely to be. He knew my presence was required, yet impossible. My existence, legally, was still tied to the Magnolia Lane Estate and the life Charlotte Vance had so eagerly tried to bury.
The reading concluded this morning.
Silas said, his voice low and precise.
Predictably, Charlotte was there, expectant.
He slid a summary document across the table. My eyes scanned the dense paragraphs. Henry's assets were detailed: properties, investments, holdings in low country savings and trust. It wasn't just wealth. It was intricate, strategic. Then I saw it. The clause regarding any surviving spouse. It was written out, structured years ago, ensuring that upon his death, everything flowed directly to Charlotte Vance, with contingencies for her own heirs. No provision for a widow. No mention of Eleanor Vance. It wasn't an oversight. It was a deliberate, chilling excision from his life, executed on paper long before his actual end. This wasn't just about money. This was the final confirmation, etched in ink, of how thoroughly both my husband and my daughter had planned this. Charlotte's urgency to declare me gone, her casual cruelty at the funeral, it wasn't grief. It was the culmination of a calculated financial maneuver, dependent entirely on my legal non-existence. My death was not just convenient, it was mandatory for their plan to fully ripen. My hand tightened into a fist on the table. They thought they had erased me. They thought the will was the final nail in my coffin, legally and financially.
Quite pleased.
Silas continued, watching my face.
She seemed to view it as vindication, confirmation of her rightful inheritance.
Pleased? Vindicated? The audacity took my breath away for a split second, then replaced it with a sharp, cold clarity.
So, Eleanor,
Silas leaned forward slightly.
now that you have the full picture, the scope of their intent,
I met his gaze, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hand. It changes nothing about my resolve, Silas. It simply confirms the necessity. This isn't just about me reclaiming my life. He nodded slowly.
then we proceed as planned. The will provides the motive. Your survival provides the leverage.
Yes, I said, pushing myself back from the table. The ice-cold feeling of the wood, now a familiar companion. We proceed. Finch and Associates Law Group has a job to do. The dramatic moment of seeing myself erased from Henry's will solidified everything. There was no turning back. Legal action wasn't an option anymore. It was the only path forward. The dust motes danced in the low afternoon light, filtering through the heavy blinds at Finch and Associates Law Group. I remembered Henry once saying I was too detail-oriented for anything important. A gentle dismissal layered with years of quiet control. He was wrong. Every cross-reference date, every mismatched signature felt like a tiny hammer blow chipping away at the edifice of their lies. My collaboration with Mr. Silas Finch began formally shortly after the will reading. Discretion was paramount. Our meetings were quiet, sometimes late in the day. The only sounds the rustle of paper and the low murmur of his voice.
Eleanor,
He'd say, pushing a folder across the large wooden desk.
they tell a story, not the one Henry wanted publicized.
We pored over years of financial statements, transfers, shell companies I'd never heard of, assets moved without my knowledge, tied to Magnolia Lane Estate in ways designed to be opaque. It wasn't just negligence, it was calculated obfuscation. My internal resolve hardened with every page. This wasn't just about money. It was about proving they didn't just hurt me. They actively dismantled my life, piece by piece, while I was still living it.
It happened faster than usual,
Silas noted, tapping a document.
almost like someone was in a hurry.
I nodded, a cold certainty settling in my gut. Charlotte. Driven by avarice, enabled by Henry's indifference. They had planned this, assuming I would simply fade away, lost in grief or compliant confusion. They saw my quiet nature as weakness, my attention to detail as a quirk, not a tool for survival. We even looked into the Southern Cross, Henry's boat. It turned out to be less about hidden treasure and more about leveraged loans tied to assets I should have had control over. Every thread led back to the same conclusion, a deliberate, systematic attempt to divest me of everything I had a claim to.
We're building a formidable case, Eleanor.
Silas said, his voice low but firm.
Their steps were clumsy in their confidence.
Less observant, less meticulous, their fatal flaw. While they celebrated my supposed demise, believing their scheme was complete, I was quietly, methodically, gathering the undeniable proof of their betrayal. The silence in the office wasn't empty. It was filled with the quiet click of puzzle pieces fitting together, forming a picture they never wanted the world or me to see. The strategic intensity grew daily. The case was building, not with noise, but in the quiet. Deadly precision of facts. The silence in the Azalea Gardens senior living room was a stark contrast to the storm I knew was breaking across Charleston.
It's filed, Eleanor. As of 10 a.m. today, June 5th, 2023. A formal challenge to the probate of Henry's will and a preliminary claim on specific assets. Magnolia Lane Estate, the Low Country Savings and Trust Accounts, the Southern Cross.
Mr. Silas Finch's voice was calm, professional, a solid anchor. The turning point. This was it. The first stone, cast with deliberate force. I imagined Charlotte Vance receiving the notification, her carefully constructed world tilting on its axis. The panic, the disbelief. She thought I was ashes in the ground, a ghost they'd successfully buried.
The initial reaction will be chaos. Someone they thought was gone. We need to anticipate every frantic move they make.
His words cut through my thoughts, sharp and necessary. Chaos is precisely what I want, I replied, my voice steadier than it had any right to be after all this time. Let them scramble. The untold truth was simple. This wasn't a random attack. This was consequence. Every calculated lie, every ruthless decision they made after Henry Vance's death on May 10th, 2023, from staging my departure on May 11th, 2023, to the charade at Charleston Memorial Gardens Chapel on May 18th, 2023, and the premature reading of the will on June 1st, 2023, it all led to this moment. They underestimated me profoundly. They saw a weak woman, easily discarded. They didn't see the steel they forged in me with their betrayal.
Charlotte will be the primary target of this initial phase.
Silas confirmed.
The challenge focuses on potential undue influence and financial irregularities around the time of Henry's death and the subsequent handling of the estate. It opens every door.
Good, I said, a cool satisfaction spreading through me. Open every door, shine a light into every dark corner they tried to hide things in. That mask was about to shatter. The consequences for her calculated actions, executed with ruthless decision, had just begun to unfold. Not as a gentle unraveling, but as a sharp, jarring shockwave. The early morning sun, soft as silk, filtered through the window of my small apartment at Azalea Gardens Senior Living. It kissed the worn covers of my book, a stark contrast to the harsh glare that used to penetrate the heavy drapes at Magnolia Lane Estate. That house, a gilded cage, felt a lifetime away. Here, the air smelled of damp earth and azaleas, not polished wood and unspoken resentments. I remember one of Charlotte Vance's last sneers.
You'll never manage outside, Mother. Delicate.
She thought she knew me, saw only the wife Henry Vance had molded, kept comfortable and compliant. They both did. But they underestimated the steel forged in quiet years, the resilience of a root system unseen beneath the surface. Sitting on the small balcony, a mug of coffee from the Palmetto Perch Cafe warming my hands, was a luxury beyond measure. Not the forced formality of the estate's breakfast room, but simple, quiet autonomy. I often walked to Waterfront Park, watched the fairies glide across the water, the pineapple fountain sparkling. It wasn't just reflection anymore, it was validation. Every ripple proved I hadn't drowned. My friend Dolores Ramirez called that morning.
Eleanor? Just checking in. Peaceful?
More than peaceful, Dolores, I replied, a genuine smile in my voice.
Good. You deserve it.
They thought I was lost, I mused, watching a pelican dive, that without Henry's name, without the estate's walls, I would simply cease to exist.
They were fools.
Dolores stated flatly. Mr. Silas Finch echoed that sentiment later during a brief call about settling the last minor details.
Mrs. Vance, your daughter and others truly believed you were incapable of navigating these waters alone. Your current situation proves them unequivocally wrong.
The raw pain, the initial shock of their betrayal, had receded like an angry tide. What remained was a solid ground of self-possession, a quiet power. The simple pleasure of brewing my own tea, choosing what book to read, or just feeling the breeze off the harbor at Waterfront Park. These were freedoms I hadn't realized had been slowly suffocated within those grand walls at Magnolia Lane Estate. I hadn't just survived. I had bloomed where they thought I would wither. They saw only the surface. I felt the strength of the roots. The quiet wasn't emptiness. It was the sound of an illusion finally shattering. The legal process, meticulous and unforgiving, had run its course after June 5th, 2023. Mr. Silas Finch had been everything I needed. Sharp, strategic, and utterly discreet.
The findings are conclusive. Eleanor, Charlotte Vance's complicity in the financial misappropriation surrounding Henry's estate is undeniable. It's quite staggering.
He told me over coffee at the Palmetto Perch Cafe. I just nodded, watching the steam rise from my cup.
Severe. Jail time is likely, along with significant restitution. She won't walk away from this. She won't be able to hide from what she did, from the lie she built.
Part of me expected some surge of vengeful satisfaction, but it wasn't there. Only a deep, settled calm. They had orchestrated my disappearance, my death, the grief for public consumption, all for control of Magnolia Lane Estate and Henry Vance's fortune. They underestimated the quiet woman they thought they could erase. They mistook my patience for weakness, my silence for absence. I thought of that day at Charleston Memorial Gardens Chapel, watching the charade. It wasn't just a funeral. It was the deliberate burial of me by the people who claimed to love me most. That image, the back of my own headstone, was seared into my memory. But it became my liberation. Every moment of grief they performed, every tear they shed, real or not, was a step further away from their reach, a step closer to reclaiming my life. Charlotte Vance and those who aided her, their carefully constructed world collapsed under the weight of truth and the relentless unraveling initiated from Azalea Gardens Senior Living. The illusion of the grieving daughter, the respectable heirs, was dismantled piece by piece. It wasn't revenge I sought. It was vindication. It was the cold, hard fact that they couldn't keep me buried. They had tried to write my ending, but I picked up the pen and started a new chapter entirely on my own terms. I survived their plot. More than that, I thrived. The strength I found wasn't in bitterness, but in the quiet autonomy I built brick by careful brick. They paid the price, not because I hunted them, but because the truth, when finally revealed by Mr. Silas Finch's tireless work, was an unstoppable force against their fragile lies. The air here at Azalea Gardens Senior Living smells of jasmine and salt from the nearby coast. It's a gentle scent, a contrast to the heavy, musty air of secrets that hung over Magnolia Lane Estate. My days are quiet now, filled with simple routines. Reading on the porch, walking the shaded paths, watching the low country light filter through the live oaks. The shadows of the past are still there sometimes. A flicker of memory, a pang of what was lost. Not the fortune or the house, but the naive belief in unconditional love. But those shadows no longer hold me captive. They are just part of the landscape I've navigated to get here. I claimed my life back, not with a shout or a dramatic confrontation, but with quiet strategy and unwavering resolve. The woman who attended her own funeral wasn't mourning her death. She was witnessing the end of her old life and the birth of her true self. It was the ultimate act of survival, a triumph whispered against the backdrop of their public grief. The world Charlotte Vance built crumbled. Mine bloomed, slowly, peacefully, right here. It's a small life, perhaps, compared to the grand scale of the one they tried to steal. But it is mine. Every breath I take, every quiet moment of peace is a victory. They underestimated me completely. And that, in the end, was their undoing. My life, reclaimed, feels vast and full, bathed in the simple, honest light of a new day.